Rick Bozich joins us now. Rick, and as I said in the break, it's everyone's singing "Kumbaya." It's rainbows and unicorns. It's happy, happy, and Hoosier Nation. All the fans are excited. The funny thing is, they're probably not feeling much different. The Purdue fans are probably feeling kind of similar today, which they shouldn't. They lost to a good team last night on the road, to a team that they damn near lost to last year. So not surprising. But that doesn't make losing fans go crazy anyway. But the difference is, Indiana just seems to be on a truck that's heading downhill in neutral right now, and the brakes kind of seem to be out, but there aren't answers to basic questions like, why can't a team shoot free throws all of a sudden? Not all of a sudden, but all of that. And it's not everybody. If I see somebody say they need to practice free throws again, I'm going to throw up. It has not, they can practice till the cows come home. It has nothing to do with that. It's either in their head. They're either not focused or your mechanics are bad. It's one of those things, but none of it is being fixed is the problem. But there's so many different things: roster makeup, guard deficiencies, shooting deficiencies. I mentioned last night, Rick, Rutgers stats are amazing. They finished the game hitting one of their last 8 shots with no field goals in nearly the last 5 minutes of the game. They shot 32% from the field. They shot 23% from behind the arc, and they shot 68% at the free throw line, yet won the game pretty easily over Indiana. And they're probably, if not the worst, trending to be the worst team in the conference. So none of that adds up to positives on the side for Indiana.
No, that's just because Rutgers is a more mentally tough and committed to defense team than Indiana is. Indiana's been out-toughed by Rutgers now, 5 or 6 years in a row in Piscataway? I mean, they can't win there.
2018 is the last time they won there.
Yeah, Rutgers believes they're the tougher program, and they are, until Indiana proves otherwise. And you mentioned the thing about the free throws. I mean, I agree with you. They could practice 500 a day for the rest of the week. It's mental concentration when you're at the line and approaching it as that this free throw could decide the game. There's a lot of casualness there where I missed one, no big deal. I missed another one, no big deal. Well, it is a big deal because they had a chance to really put Rutgers away or get some separation where they could have some comfort in the game. But they lost the game because they couldn't shoot free throws. They couldn't shoot threes. They turned it over 18 times. And the point guard did a dumb thing and got thrown out of the game, which you can't do. A 6th-year player can't make a play like it. It's embarrassing for him to make a play like that. And, unless something changes and changes pretty drastically, I'll be very confident if you can write it down that on January 10th, 2024, I'll say they're not going to make the NCAA tournament.
Oh, I would be shocked if they make the tournament. Right. I don't know how they get out of the Big Ten without a losing record,
right?
Honestly, and I just don't see a change coming. It's a trend. It's a downward trend, and I don't see anything that's going to turn that trend around. They have not shot the ball well all season. They've had games where they have, but overall, not. There does not seem to be an offensive plan. I don't know what the plan actually is other than just get the ball into the bigs and let them do what they're going to do, which, hell, I can do that. I can coach that, and I'm as dumb as anybody. But
it's a poorly constructed team. The big guys don't complement each other. There's too many of them. Mbako, I don't know what he was considered coming in. I guess a small forward. He's not. He doesn't have small forward skills. He's not a good ball handler. He's more of a power forward. So you're basically playing with 3 big guys who have to get the ball in the post. I mean, Mbako can shoot threes, and he doesn't really make them at a high percentage yet. But the other 2 guys are post players. And that's not the way the game's played anymore. And they don't have a guard who really is a dynamic player with the ball. You know, it's an old-fashioned term, but you call them triple threat players. They can beat you off the dribble. They can beat you with their jump shot, or they can beat you by beating their man and passing the ball and getting somebody else a better shot. They don't have a triple threat player on their team. They don't. And that's just absurd at this point in Mike Woodson's career at Indiana, that they don't have a guard. They don't have a guard who'll make first, second, or third team All Big Ten. They don't have one. And you're not going to win doing that. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And it's bad roster construction at this point. And it's something that is the first thing that needs to be fixed at the end of this season.
And last night, Mike was asked again about his substitution pattern. And
right.
I don't understand what he doesn't understand. That people know that you have to substitute, that you're not going to play 5 guys for the entire game. We all know that. But why? I don't understand why he doesn't understand that you don't have to swap them all out at the same time,
right?
And have 4 starters on the bench at the same time. There's a reason you're starting these 5 guys, that you most likely think those are your best 5 players. So why would you take 4 of your best players off of the floor at the same time and put guys in front on there that could not beat them out?
Well, I mean, I'm right with you. We've seen this from the very beginning of the year when he made the large group substitutions, that Indiana lost all of its momentum, and the second group wasn't capable of doing the job. And to keep doing it is insanity. And the stats bear it out. I think it was Tony Adranja had a great stat last night about when 4 of those guys off the bench are in there, how Indiana's effectiveness goes way down. That's part one of it. And it's not just a media thing. Fans, everybody sees it. He has to see it, but he doesn't want to hear it from the media or for fans on the way he's going to substitute his team. I don't know if that comes from being coming from Coach Knight, but you know what? He's not Coach Knight. Coach Knight could push back on questions because he won 3 national championships and went to a bunch of Final Fours. And the other thing I don't understand about that is
he would also sit a starter like that if he didn't do what he was supposed to do to help the team win.
And the other thing is, Mike Woodson coached in New York City in the NBA. I mean, he was used to getting questioned by the media. I don't know whether he thinks he's coming to Indiana and nobody's going to question what he's doing, but he's wrong. And especially when you lose games by big margins to Auburn and to UConn, when you blow a lead in the last 7 minutes against Kansas, when you can't win at Rutgers, and when you're lucky to beat Morehead State and Army and Florida Gulf Coast. You're fortunate. Those are games that have kind of gone either way. When you're fortunate to win some of those games, people are going to look at this and say, hey, this isn't working right. So there's a better way to answer the question than by saying, I'm not going to answer that question. It's not going to make the question go away. People are going to keep asking it, Jim.
But it makes me really think, does he not understand the question? I don't know that he really understands it. He has continued to answer it by saying, I can't play these guys 40 minutes a game. Well, again, not to steal a Woodson phrase, but again, we all know that. But
right
here, that's not what was asked, and it's not what has been asked. And that's where the discrepancy is.
How would this work? Coach Woodson, we need to get you over the hump of understanding this question.
I thought that had sailed. I thought that ship sailed too, but it was back last night.
What people are trying to say is, can you alter your substitution pattern in a way that there's always at least 3 starters on the court? Because when you go 4 or 5 deep with the subs, it's not working. And people can go back to the Florida Gulf Coast game and say, look at this, look at this, look at this. The bench hasn't developed in that way. They don't have any guards. I mean, the starting guards aren't good enough. The backup guards certainly aren't good enough.
And whatever style you want to call it, system. I don't know that there is a system in place per se, but style, whatever you want to call it. It seems to be very, very NBA-ish, which is great. But on an NBA roster, you have 17 guys that are all professional players. Every one of them. The worst guy on the bench was a pretty damn good player. He may not be LeBron James, may not be Tyrese Halliburton, but they're on an NBA roster, and that makes them a pretty damn good player. That's not the case in college. And it's not the case with a team that is minus a scholarship, that is minus an injured player. And there are just so many things that go into it. And yet there are, it hasn't worked for Indiana running that style. It was great when you had Trey Jackson Davis at his peak and you could throw it inside and he just willed a basket. But you don't have that right now. I mean, you've got some players, but you don't have that to lean on. And I've seen a lot of people say he covered up a lot of deficiencies. Maybe he did, but
he did,
because it showed they did not use Miller Kopp. I was pretty hard on him, but apparently he's doing okay in the G League.
Yeah, he is. He's shooting well. Better than he shot in Indiana. He's getting more attempts. I'm going to keep coming back to the guards, man. The guards control the offense. The guards control what shots you're going to get. The guards are the first point of attack on defense. They're the ones that can make the other team uncomfortable. The guards are the ones who set the tone. Are you going to play the game the way Rutgers wants to play it, or are you going to play the game the way Indiana wants to play it? Too often the guards do not impose their will on the other team. Xavier Johnson was bad against Nebraska. He was very good against Ohio State and Indiana won. He was bad against Rutgers. And I'm not saying it's 100% this way, but Trey Galloway, for the most part, plays well in Assembly Hall and does not play well on the road. And last night, I mean, I don't know. After what he didn't make, he's 0 for 4 on threes. He took the most shots. He was 4 for 13. He missed both of his free throws. I mean, he had 5 assists. He did do that well. But he's got to play better. I mean, he's probably a 6th or 7th man. That's what he is on a team that makes the NCAA tournament. He's a 6th or 7th man.
Yeah, and this Indiana team right now, I don't know where they go from here. They're playing a Minnesota team at home this Friday. Minnesota is second in the Big Ten right now at 3-1.
Who have they beaten? Have they beaten anybody though?
I don't know. You know what? I've tried to pull their.
I can pull
they
it
won
up
7 in a row.
Pretty sure they beat Michigan State recently. I can't. Oh, again, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I know they have at least one solid Big Ten win so far.
Right, and they haven't played since Sunday. They've beaten Nebraska at home.
Their current 7-game winning streak started with a win over Nebraska.
Yeah, they beat Michigan on the road, and they beat Maryland at home. They've won, and then they lost.
Well,
they've
had a nice start to their schedule, kind of eased their way into it. Coming into Assembly Hall will be very, very difficult for them just because it's.
Hey, they're a good 3-point shooting team, though. They shoot 36%, so look out for that.
Well, that means they're going to shoot 46% at Assembly Hall because that's what teams have done this year. But Indiana has a lot of problems they've got to get fixed and fast. I don't know that the NCAA tournament is even within their grasp, I'll be honest with you, because I just don't know that they can fix these problems that they have, because I've said it earlier today, when you combine all the factors that there doesn't seem to be discipline on that team.
There's no leadership. You can't have your senior 6-year point guard doing the stuff that Xavier Johnson does and expect him to be a good leader. I mean, you can't. Right? I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see it.
I'm surprised. What I'm surprised most about is a guy that played for Knight, who was the king of accountability, has some of the least accountability that I've seen in a while. I mean, Archie Miller doesn't count, but he doesn't seem to hold players accountable either by using the bench for gameplay or off the court stuff, there are no consequences for this team. Bad play, doesn't matter. You're going to start. You do something wrong, doesn't matter. You're going to play.
Well, we'll see Friday night if there's any consequences for Xavier Johnson.
Well, is he finally pushed to that point? Has Mike Woodson been forced? Has his hand been forced because of all these things? His reaction to the question last night, that shows, it's getting to him as well, I think.
I mean, I think he's surprised that after, just because they won the tournament the last couple of years and won one game each year, that I think he thought people would give him, and because he's a former IU player, there'd be more of a grace period, but that's not the way it is. There's been a lot of consternation about recruiting, and there's been consternation about the way this team played from the very first game. I was there, you were there, the Florida Gulf Ghost came. They were not impressive. I was there, you were there, the second game against Army. This team was not impressive. They really, I mean, what's been their best win? Ohio State, I guess, is their best win.
Yep,
yeah,
no question.
But they're rare when they're winning games. They're rarely exceeding what's expected of them. They're frequently underperforming, and I don't think it's being unfair, overly critical to say that. Then that's why the analytics say what they do. And I know that Tom Izzo said the other night after the Northwestern game when they lost that analytics are crap, but you know what? Analytics are something that the committee looks at, and they look at Indiana and see them in 90s in Ken Palm or over triple digits in the net. I mean, they're not even going to be considered for the NCAA tournament.